computer. Excellent. So this is Amanda Aminata Soul Plant Walker Firewoman interviewing our special guest, Amanda Silver. And today our theme is to talk about doing less, doing differently, and healing the world. So Amanda is a leadership coach. She particularly works with folks who are in social justice and women in leadership positions. And she and I met via the internet, and we only met in person this past summer at a Sister Queens retreat that I was hosting on our land, Kukulade, a couple months ago. So, but I have known Amanda for about 4 years now. So we were both surprised to realize we had never met in person, given how much trust there was between us. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here and loved doing some movement before jumping into the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of the thing about doing differently, I think, is to really honor our bodies as we go. And, but let me ask you, I always like to start these conversations off of what's good. Anything
All right.
that you notice that is good in the world, or good in your body, or good in your town?
That's a great question. I'm going to say right now, what's good. So I live in Hanover, New Hampshire. It's cold and wintry 8 months out of the year. Slight benefit is that we get peak foliage like 2 or 3 weeks before anybody else does. And right now, what's good is just looking outside. There's just the most amazing hues of red and orange and yellow and green and rainbow trees. Those are my favorite ones. So I've been spending a lot of time admiring and really connecting to the foliage, which is a peak season right now. It's a little bittersweet because in probably a week, it's all going to be gone, but it's beautiful.
Yeah. What kind of tree did you say in particular?
Oh, I said rainbow trees, which is
what is that?
That's a name that I created just to highlight when the trees are turning and they're like red, orange, yellow, green, and you can see all the hues in the tree at the same time because different portions of the tree have changed. And it's going through its own metamorphosis, but each level of the tree is doing it at a different time frame.
Yeah.
I call them rainbow trees. My kids and I drive around in the minivan and I'm like, look, a rainbow tree. It's missing a couple of colors, but it's close enough.
That's a sweet image of you in a minivan driving around with your kids.
Yeah. Well, they're good too. Those two are really good too. When you say what's good, spending time with them outside, really getting them to appreciate the nature too is very good.
Yeah. I just remember when my kids were little, on our way to daycare, sometimes we would I'd be pushing them in the stroller, and I would stop and hug some trees. There's some huge sycamores. They're really pretty for some reason. I just like them. This is in the early 2000s. And at some point I stopped doing that. And I remember once I think it was my daughter said, "Mommy, hug the tree."
Oh, I love that. That's so sweet. And you never know what your kids are like, what they're taking in from you and what they feel like is a pattern and behavior. I really love that.
Yeah.
That's precious.
Yeah. And it's, it's such a responsibility modeling, through our actions for our kids. And I know that's one of the ways in which we first met. We were talking about, racial justice and doing that kind of work inside your family. And then, so and one of the things I had said that I wanted to ask you about was like, compared to where you were maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I don't remember, and where you are now, what are some of the maybe highlight changes that you feel like you've made in your thinking or in your actions over that
Yeah.
period of time?
Yeah. Well, when I first met you through the internet, really it was you did a 5-day challenge to take a look at your implicit bias. And I had done a lot of work, but I had and I was working in a lot of multiracial environments. And I realized that if I was gonna be the best person I could be doing equity and racial justice work, I needed to do more work and really look at the internal aspect of how I had internalized whiteness and privilege in my work. And so I would say, and that was a big part of racial justice from the heart and our work together. And I would say the big changes have been, first, it's become an integrated lens into the way that I think about both my work, but also how I'm being with my children and how I'm being in my community. And it's also become, like, on an internal level, I think I had a lot of fear, a lot of shame, and it got in the way of me speaking out and speaking up. And I'm not proud to say that, but like I tend to have a free, like, when my amygdala goes off and I'm in stress mode, my default is to freeze or appease. And that doesn't go well with facilitating groups and calling out racism when it needs to be called out, not in a punitive way, but to speak up and point things out, right? So I noticed myself freezing a lot. And so what's changed is that I'm much more comfortable speaking up, both in one-on-one conversations with colleagues and friends, and also when I'm facilitating in a group, like, to name a dynamic that's present and to know that it's okay, that it's going to be uncomfortable, and that it's really an important part of the work that we all need to do to move to a place of equity and racial justice.
Yeah.
So
I was talking with a friend today because I just came back from facilitating a multi-day, very deep workshop on race. And one of the things that we talked about was you can only bring to the table what you have.
yeah,
You really cannot bring more than what you have.
right.
I mean,
It's one of those very simple but deeply profound statements that is very
exactly.
true. Yeah,
Right. So it's like,
yeah,
and I mean, obviously it works. It's true in your life too. You can only
yeah,
bring what you have. And so if so the more you are cultivating, an awareness or a muscle, or, being heart centered, or, noticing when your amygdala is being stimulated and finding your breath. I mean, all how, we start where we
right.
are and we bring what we have.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, that's all you can do. And I think for me, the journey has been, like, increasing my capacity to bring more, because
Right.
I have a different toolkit. I have a different community too. Like, that's been huge too, is the racial justice from the heart community, and a number of other communities that I've become a part of that are intentionally multiracial, intentionally committed to racial equity, which allows people to have conversations that before had just been like in my head with me, like just spinning over and over and over again, not actually serving or doing anything for anybody out in the world. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hmm. And I know just because there are a lot of people in this community and who listen, who are following the podcasts, have children, or have children in their care, or mothers, or parenting, or teaching, working
Mm-hmm.
with children. So I wonder, how do you find yourself, uh, what shifted in how you bring, racial justice or any of the things that are associated with that to
Mm-hmm.
your mothering or whatever
Yeah.
other work you do with kids?
Yeah. It's a great question. So I think I am, well, a lot happens in my family with reading. So a strategy that I've continued to use that works really well is to bring in both books where, I mean, just to make sure that the books that we're reading have very diverse characters from lots of different racial and ethnic backgrounds and cultures, and that in and of itself is 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 a good baseline, right? But then also bringing in books that are, and this, I think for us, it's worked really well to bring in books about historical figures or leaders that are African American or of other backgrounds, and to really learn about their stories and have conversations about them. And then, ask the children, like, what do you think about this? And how does this relate to other things that you have learned about? And so that helps keep a level of awareness and conversation happening in our household that is really important. And then I would say, like, on a different level, it's not directly with the kids, but it's for the kids. I joined the diversity, equity, and inclusion committee of my town to make sure that there was a policy for the town around inclusion. And so my kids, I've talked about that at home a bit. And I think, like, being able to talk about what's going well and where there have been challenges around that policy development is also a way that they get to understand that, like, not everybody actually believes that there should be inclusion and equity built into the way the school thinks about its work. And why is that? And also, why do we understand that it is really important and valuable, and that we have to keep stepping up and asserting, even if it feels unpleasant and it doesn't, even if we feel like we're fighting. So I think that is also, like, through the modeling piece is really helpful. Having conversations about race is really helpful. I think the biggest thing really is it's also giving asking pointed questions. Like, if we read a book where all of the characters are white, for example, or coming from a particular, like, I understand it to be a pretty, like, mainstream white perspective, or maybe patriarchal perspective, all of those things, like, to ask pointed questions, like, what do you think about this? What's missing here that we see in all of the other books that we read? To give them a chance to make observations also. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Those are some of the things that we do on a regular basis. But I will say, it's not like I don't have this all figured out. I think it's the intention and the commitment and continuing to identify opportunities. In particular here, like, we live in a predominantly white town, European American. And so very intentionally searching out friendships and relationships with families that are not European American, that are of other ethnic cultures and backgrounds and races. So that's also something that I think about.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how it's woven into what you do, you know,
Yeah,
it's not a special occasion. It's
yeah,
like it's part of what you do in your town. It's part of the books that you read.
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and is there a way, um, I guess that to me, isn't there like a dance? Because I know that you're also Jewish, Amanda. So
Yeah,
is there a way that you are like, and you live in a predominantly white town? I don't know how Jewish it is. Uh,
not very,
okay.
very, very, very not Jewish.
Okay, so very not Jewish, you know. So and you know, it's like you're like this outpost of
Yeah,
holding down something that's important to you, if it is important to you. And I from
it
this
is. It
conversation,
is. You
yeah,
know it is. Yes. Yeah.
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 So and it could be hard to hold something if you don't have a whole community holding it with you.
Yes.
It's
A
just
hundred.
inside your family.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, which is why I think it's important. But well, from the Jewish piece, I will say I didn't bring that in, but we talk about what it is to be Jewish, and it comes up very regularly in the same conversations that we're having about difference, because in this environment, around religion, even though we are, European American, white skinned, there is difference around our religious identities. And in a very Christian dominant culture, what does that mean? Like, how do we build the traditions that are important to us? And how do we find the spaces in the community for us? And how do we deal with folks who don't actually appreciate Jews and anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic attacks that not are happening here per se, but are happening around the country and the world? And so so that gets filtered into the conversation also,
Mhm.
and often creates a good link for us to talk, even though it's not the same, right? And I do try to weave in the fact, like, even though we are Jewish, we still have skin that allows us to have privilege in ways that other friends of ours don't,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So we do talk about that, and it is difficult. And I think it's like the community piece is really, really important, really
Mhm.
important. So I would say also, like, where my friends do have children, my friends are very close with friends that are from other ethnic backgrounds, cultures, and races. And so that, that does help, because we have that community, and
Mhm.
everyone's really open. They're open with us about our Jewishness, even though we're the only Jews in the space, where everyone's open about their different ethnic and cultural and racial heritages. So it is really important. It's essential, I think, to just hold it in your own family is difficult.
Mhm. 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 Yeah. I just know from having brought my kids up in a predominantly white space, it's yeah, holding your traditions and also being in multiracial spaces that are open where you can openly talk about it and
Mhm.
you know, yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be intentional.
It has to be intentional. Where we live,
Mhm.
it has to be intentional.
Mhm. Mhm.
Otherwise, it doesn't have it doesn't happen. It's just by numbers alone, it wouldn't happen.
Right.
I see Jenny's question, how do you do that in a way that doesn't center you and what you need? And I love that question because I think about it a lot. I would never, ever want to be like the, the white person coming in and saying, oh, we should be friends, just for like to fulfill an
Yes.
idea that I have about that. That just feels really terrible to me. And so I would say the way we have approached it is there are, so first of all, my kids through sports are making friends, and in particular, my son in soccer. And so we're meeting families of other cultures and backgrounds. And so there's a link there that is connecting us and enables us to build authentic relationships around things that matter to both of our families. So it's not fake, or it's not fake, and it's also not intentional in a way that that would center my needs as a white person, I would say.
Mhm.
And then the other way, which I like, it's something that I want to continue to do more of, is like there are different networks, partially because like there are communities of people of different backgrounds and ethnicities here, and there are different clubs and spaces where folks are gathering that are multicultural. And so I'm looking for those spaces. So for example, there's the Buena Vista Club is for folks who have an interest in speaking Spanish, either as native speakers or people who want to continue to practice. And it's a pretty diverse group. And so that's a space where I've been able to build some relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think what I hear in that is uh build on what is authentically you, and also where you're invited,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And where
Yeah.
people want you to show up. They want you to show up. If you want to practice Spanish, then they want you to show up. Or yeah, yeah. So thank you for that question, Jenny. And so Amanda, one of the things that we've been focusing on this month is like doing less. Just because I just was emailing people in my community asking what they were struggling with. And so many people were struggling with feeling exhausted, worn out,
Yeah.
so overwhelmed. Um,
Yeah.
so what's your sort of take on doing less and doing differently?
Oh my gosh, I love this topic. I love the theme. It's like so deeply resonant with the way I'm thinking also about both myself and my life personally, and how I'm thinking about my work, and also 100% resonant with what I'm hearing from my coaching clients, women in leadership. And the first thing I'll say is like the timing is beautiful, because I think September, October is a it's an intense period of time for a lot of people, because we're coming off the summer, and the summer has a different rhythm to it. And then everything, I don't know about other folks in this community, I don't want to make assumptions, but as a parent with two small children, ages 8 and 10, the back to school thing is like, oh, it caught me off guard this year, even though I know that it's busy. And I think the other thing that's shifting for folks is like, despite the fact that there is still plenty of COVID happening, the protocols, we know a lot more, like the protocols for socializing have shifted. Things are moving back to more of what we had before. So there's that happening too. At least those are things that are happening in my life and in the lives of people that I've been talking to. So yeah, so doing less. I think it's really important. So so I don't know. Maybe I'll just start on the individual level, how I've been thinking about this, because is that helpful? What do you think,
Yeah,
Amanda? Yeah.
definitely. Definitely.
Uh,
Give us examples from your life, because I know you're committed to healing the world and you have your own business and you said two small children and
Yeah.
you're on a diversity, equity, inclusion committee for your town. So tell us,
Yeah.
how is that for you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I will just say that I love being in this space because of the focus on heart and spirit. And I will say, like last year around this time, I've had an on and off again meditation practice for about 20 years. I say off and on, like sometimes I'm on it and I'm meditating every day for 10 minutes and it's great, or never every day, but it's more like 3 to 5 times a week. And then sometimes weeks go by and I don't do anything with intentional sitting on my pillow and meditating. But last year I was feeling such a deep yearning, a very deep yearning for stillness in my life. And I had no idea how to get it. And I felt like just I had to keep doing all the things that I was doing. And one of the things that I did, which was so meaningful, was I worked with I'm still working with her. She's wonderful. I worked with a spiritual director who, for folks who aren't familiar with spiritual directors, I don't know. A spiritual director is someone who like you check in with on a regular basis, like once a month, to talk about how spirit and God, if that's, if that's language that speaks to you, resides in, like, how is it residing in your life? Like, where are you finding it? How are you? And through the conversations I had with her, I realized I need more quiet. And she suggested, well, why not, like, can you take half a day once a month to do some retreat, like go on personal retreat for yourself? And I was like, no, I can't do that. That's crazy. I can't do that. That's like, that's billable hours. It's time I should be with my kids. I should be cleaning the house, whatever. But she posed the question and I thought about it and my heart was just like, yes, 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 yes. And so I figured out how to do it. And you know what? It actually wasn't, it took finagling, it took reorienting my schedule, it took shifting patterns of behavior, but then I put it in the calendar and it was there and I planned around it. And so I started to do this once a month. And after the second time I did it, I felt like, oh, I want more of this. How can I do more of this? I don't know what's going to emerge from this, but every time I did it, there was an opening of possibility around creating more space. And so anyway, long story short, I started to plan that time in every other week. So I was doing that in the spring and it was incredibly meaningful. And every time I allowed myself to get still, insights and perspectives and ideas about how to create more stillness in my life, more of doing less in a way that was still giving back to the world, like those things would just surface because I gave myself the time to do it, to be quiet and not expect anything from it, just to be quiet for quiet's sake. Yeah, and then summer came and that went away, except for being on our Sister Queen retreat, which was such a delicious, spacious place to explore heart and spirit. But all of that led to me signing up for this 5-day silent meditation retreat that I did in September. And that was something I used to do before I had children. This was the first time I'd been on one of those in 10 years. And it's countercultural, right? And when I tell people about it, they're like, you did what? you didn't talk to anyone for 5 days? Did you go nuts? Did you like, weren't you bored? And yeah, I was bored every once in a while, but mostly I just watched my mind get quieter and stiller. And in that spaciousness, a lot of gratitude and connection came out of it, which is what I've really been yearning for, I think. So I don't know, I'll stop there, but that's on a personal level. I think that's what's been the practice for me this year, is finding those moments of stillness. Oh, you're on mute, Amanda.
Thank you. I can relate, Amanda. I had a whole episode about when my deep self told me stop everything. Stop
Yeah.
everything. It was intense, but it
Yeah,
was
we've
such a
talked about
yearning.
that. Yeah.
It was such a yearning, though, a heart yearning. So
Yeah.
I wonder, for folks who are considering this possibility of, creating these pockets, in the schedule of intentional stillness, you know, uh,
Yeah.
I wonder if you could reassure them that somehow that helps to heal the world. Like, is there any way in
Oh,
which that you're sitting or you're quiet led to you giving something or doing something differently than you would have previously, and it having a good impact?
yeah, 100%. I mean, it was in the stillness that I realized and got very clear that I wanted to launch and run the women's leadership incubator that I developed, this group women's leadership coaching program. If I hadn't given myself the time to be still and then to dream from that place of quiet, like all the other stuff is so busy and hectic, like, and when it came through, it was very clear to me, like, yes, this is something that I want to do, and I want to build it from this place, not the place of like, oh, I need to do this because it feels important and my ego's interested in it and all this stuff. But so there's that. But there's also, I came back from the silent meditation retreat so much more present for the work that I'm doing with my clients, who are, like everyone you just said, like all of us, like feeling stressed, overwhelmed, anxious. So being able to show up like fully present for them and hold space for them to do that from a place of feeling whole myself, it's a very different kind of way of giving back. And it's where I want to be when I'm doing my work, but I'm not always there, right? Like when I'm anxious or overwhelmed myself. And I will say also with my children, like I'm able to be so much more aware and able to manage, both to observe and notice what's going on in my own system, and not react, but to respond so much more skillfully in high heat situations with tempers, and when kids are not listening to you or they're having meltdowns because of whatever. So I think those are three very clear areas. Another, and then I'll just say one more, is that it became very clear to me what I should be prioritizing and spending my time on in my work, and what I need to let go of. Like, what are things that are distractions? Because I think a lot of what makes, and again, there's so many things that contribute to overwhelm and having too much on your plate. But oftentimes one of those factors is the inability to say no to things, because we feel like we want, it's coming from a good place of wanting to help and support lots of different things. Somebody asks you for help or support, asks you to do something, but it became very clear to me that there are certain things that I need to focus my energy and attention on right now because they're priorities and they're connected to my felt purpose of helping to change the world through supporting leaders. And there are other things that are actually distractions that I need to wrap up and say goodbye to, or hand them off to other people, or, pause them, whatever. So I think
Yeah.
it helps me be more, it's helped me actually be more effective in my prioritization and decision making about what I'm giving my energy and my life force
Yes.
to make change.
Yes. Yes. And I'm just, let's take a moment here to um, let people know about the upcoming meditation challenge. So
Yeah.
Amanda has beautifully talked about, making time in her schedule on an every other week basis, to be in quiet. Well, starting October 26th, we're going to do a meditation challenge where we're asking people to take 15 minutes every day for 2 weeks. That's all, 15 minutes every day for 2 weeks, where we focus on a self-compassion meditation. Because you remember how I said at the beginning of this interview, you can only show up with what you have.
Yes.
Yes. So if you want to increase what you have, then this meditation, the loving kindness meditation is a place to increase that, to fill your cup. And so I just want to encourage you all, even if you're not yet ready to take a big chunk of time, commit to 15 minutes of time each day and watch what impact that has on you. So you can find that at dramandakemp.com/meditation challenge, racialjusticefromtheheart.com/meditation challenge, either one of those places. All right, so let's go back. So Amanda, if you mentioned having a DEI committee in your town, I bet you a lot of people are like, wow, how can I do that in my town? And is there something, can you just tell us a little bit about it? And maybe if people want to know more, tell us where they can know more, and we can put that in the show notes too.
Yeah. So I want to, maybe I didn't speak with as much detail. So the DEI committee is it's through the school district. It's not a community committee. But there is a community group that formed separate from the DEI committee that I did not create it. It was formed by other individuals in the town, called Inclusive Upper Valley, which was formed because there was a lot of, initially was formed because there was a lot of pressure being put on the school system, the high school, the middle school, and the elementary school to explain what the diversity, equity, inclusion work was that they were doing, and not in a supportive way. It was it was in a very challenging way, and it became very clear that it was really important to have the folks who really cared about DEI work in the schools start to step up as a community to organize and make sure that we were both letting our school administrators, our teachers know that we loved what they were doing and felt like it was really, really important, so that the loud opposing voices, it didn't seem like they were the only ones operating. The truth is, the community itself is very supportive of DEI work overall, but there's a very loud faction of folks that don't want it, and are concerned about how it might pull away from the budget, and lots of different concerns. So this Inclusive Upper Valley group that I'm a part of has been working at both a very local level in the town to do community organizing to support the efforts on the school board and make sure that, and also
So picking up from where you were leaving off, Amanda, it sounds like so you guys created this inside school district grouping to help advance and support the school when it was making moves in the direction of diversity, equity, inclusion.
Yes, and one of the things that they did when the school district decided to form a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee to develop a policy for the school district, this group, Inclusive Upper Valley, was ready to help get people were ready to step up and step onto this committee.
Oh, great. So it was like
Yeah,
from
that
the
was
outside.
super organized and sending out emails. If you care about diversity, equity, and inclusion, please consider joining this committee. And a whole slate of people signed up to participate in the committee. There are also people on the committee because it was an open invitation to anyone in this school district. And so there are also people who are on the committee to mostly oppose the work that's
Right.
happening.
Right.
But the majority of people that are on the committee are folks that really have heart and center, a commitment to equity and inclusion, and want to figure out how to make it possible for the district to do it without fear of reprisal or opposition.
Yeah.
To do it in a way. So it's a school district committee that I'm on, but there is this wonderful community group called Inclusive Upper Valley that was formed, that I'm a part of, that there's probably about 80 people that are part of it. And it's kind of an act. It's like when things heat up, we are at the ready to go out and vote, or go to a protest or a rally, or sign up for positions on the school board, and
Right.
so stuff like that.
So what's interesting to me is that we've been talking about doing less, doing differently. And one of the things that you said that got us back to talking about this committee is through your periods of silence, getting clear that you needed to focus and let some things go, to say goodbye to some things.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how if we're exhausted,
Yeah.
if giving ourselves permission to be quiet, to discern where we need to focus, as opposed to announcing our exhaustion as our proof that we're really good activists. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I
Yes.
wonder, that's
Yes.
another piece to me about doing differently is
Yes.
your exhaustion is not proof that you are good. Or like,
Yes.
you don't have to be exhausted to be good.
Yes, totally. 100%. I feel like in the nonprofit sector, also, whether you're in the nonprofit sector, also with leaders, it's like one of the things I'm always offering is that you are not good for your mission of your organization if you're not taking care of yourself, right? Like that your personal sustainability and your well-being is actually critical to your ability to carry out the mission and the work that you're doing. And but because similar to what you're saying, there's such a, our culture, and I think this is really like, I think it's both white supremacy culture, that more is better, right? Like that doing more is the best, like that's what success is. And it's also from a social change and social justice perspective, like there's so much to do. How can I not do everything? Like I have to do it all, because who else will do it? And there's a bit of a martyrdom complex that it like feeds through the systems, and we don't even realize that we get value from that, but that like, oh, I'm so exhausted,
Right.
or oh, I'm so busy, I never have time for all these things. And I think the first when I'm working with leaders, the first thing that I'm doing with them is helping them take a step back to do the mindset shift that actually more good can come for you and your life and the change that you're aiming to make in the world when you are taking care of yourself, which also means not, saying no to things, right? Like you can be so much more effective if you are clear on what you're saying no to, so you can really fully say yes to the things that you know are going to make the biggest difference. So I talk about that a lot.
I think it takes some bravery,
It does. I think
some
it does too.
courage,
I
because to face your
100%.
own disapproval or disapproval of other people, to face your own feelings of guilt that rise up.
Yes, I think it does. One of the exercises that I like to do for myself, and I also have invited others to do as well, is to really lay out, because we're so driven by these cultural notions of success or what value is, that we don't realize that that's like in the back, that's like the tape that we're operating from when we make our decisions. And so to kind of like separate that out, and I don't know if you had this experience, Amanda, I think your journey to like stop everything, which is so courageous and so brave. But one of the things I like to do for myself is when I pause to actually write down what my definition of success is. Like, what does success look like for me if I am slowing down, and to work through that? Like, yes, it may bring up feelings of guilt and may bring up feelings of, but to just get it out on paper, because a lot of times people just don't even get it out, and then they don't ultimately make the hard choices, the clearing things out.
Yeah.
But I think you get it out, like define what success looks like, feels like in your body. What does a day look like for you if you're operating from your definition of success? See what it all is, paint the picture, make it really, really vivid, and then see what's surfacing, right? Because if what's surfacing is the guilt, and I mean, I'm not a stranger to this myself. Like, I also, what came out of my periods of silence was that I wanted to work less. But but success for me meant that when I was showing up for my work, I was present in a way that I felt like I couldn't be when I was working longer hours. But then when I wrote that down, I was like, can I really do this?
Yes.
Is it okay? Is it okay for me to do this?
Yes.
And it 100% surfaced. And I did talk. I mean, I talked to colleagues in the field. I talked to a coach, a business coach. I talked through it so that I could get to a place where I was like, yes, it is okay. It's actually okay. And it means that I'm doing my work differently in a way that both nurtures me and not depletes me, and also supports the people that I'm working with in a more full, holistic way.
Yes, I hear you. What I'm hearing in this is about sovereignty. And one of our other guests, Isha Vela, is very big about personal sovereignty and really owning our lives. This is the one we have. This is the one we have. And we want to, be very conscious of what it is, what we're doing with it. And it's so easy to feel like I have to, to forget where we have power.
Yes.
Even where we don't have institutional power or state power or economic power, we still have the power to step back and imagine.
Always. Yeah.
But sometimes we need support doing that. So I'm going to close this interview, which has been so juicy,
by asking you, Amanda, if people want to get support from you, if they want to follow you more, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, sure. So if you're looking for a higher level of support, I run the Women's Leadership Incubator, which is starting in January, and you can find the application for that. You can go to amandasilver.com and you'll find a link for that. So that's a group cohort program designed to build the community that you need to take these bold moves, even when especially when the bold move is actually doing less. And I have to say, in the last cohort, 2 of the people realized through the work that they were doing and hearing each other's work, 2 of the people realized that their jobs were no longer the right fit for them anymore. And they searched out other places where they could make a difference that were more resonant with the way they wanted to actually live their lives. So I think it does take a community. And if you're interested in resources, tips, and tools, you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn at Amanda Silver. Amanda Silver Consulting on Instagram and Amanda Silver 1 on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
See you
Yeah.
next time.
So great. Thank you so much. I love the conversation, and I'm very honored to be here talking about these topics.